Willow Creek was a town that carried hardship in its bones. The fields were dry, the wells were low, and debts hung heavy over nearly every family. For Clara Morgan, each sunrise felt like another reminder of how close she was to losing everything. Since her father's death 2 years ago, she had fought to keep their small farmhouse in the stretch of stubborn land that came with it. But she was fighting alone. Her mother had been gone long before, and with no siblings, she had no family to lean on. The moneylender, Randall Briggs, had taken her father's debts into his ledger, and every month he grew bolder, reminding Clara in public that her time was running out. She baked bread at dawn to sell, mended clothes by candlelight, and spent her days working the land until her hands cracked. But no matter how hard she labored, the numbers never balanced. Pride kept her from begging, but the truth weighed heavy. She was losing. One hot morning, she stood on her porch with a basket of bread ready for market, her eyes drifting to the horizon where the road shimmered with heat. A figure appeared there, tall on horseback, moving with the steady rhythm of someone who had been on the trail a long while. As he drew near, she saw a broad-shouldered man in a worn vest and dusted hat. His horse guided with ease, his presence quiet yet commanding. Strangers rarely passed through Willow Creek, and his arrival stirred whispers before he even dismounted at the blacksmith shop. He gave his name, Luke Callahan, and little else, carrying himself with the kind of calm that made people take notice. Clara saw him again when she reached town, but her attention was soon pulled by Randall Briggs. He always made a show of reminding her of her debt, and that day was no different. He cornered her near the general store, his voice loud enough for everyone nearby. "Time's almost up, Miss Morgan," he said with a smirk. "Bread won't buy back a farm. Maybe it's time you think of other arrangements." His tone carried a cruelty that made Clara's stomach twist. The townsfolk shifted uncomfortably, but no one stepped in. Clara forced herself to stand tall, her cheeks burning but her voice steady as she told him she would not be broken. Briggs laughed, tipped his hat, and walked off, leaving her shaken but defiant. Clara sat on the church steps, her basket half empty, staring at the dust swirling in the street. That was when Luke Callahan came over and lowered himself onto the step beside her. He didn't speak at first, simply sat there, his presence quiet and steady. Clara shot him a wary look, prepared for pity or worse, but he only said, "You've got fight in you, but even the strongest can't fight alone forever." She bristled. "And what would you know about my fight?" He didn't flinch. "I know what it looks like. I've seen men and women pushed down by folks who thrive on power. I know the cost of standing alone." His words were simple, but there was weight in them, the kind that only came from experience. To her own surprise, Clara found herself speaking. She told him about her father, the debts, the work that never seemed enough. He listened without interrupting, his eyes steady on hers. When she finished, he nodded slowly. "There's a way to stop him from taking what's yours." She laughed bitterly. "Unless you've got gold hidden in that saddlebag, I don't see how." Luke's gaze held hers, calm but unyielding. "You don't need gold. You need a name, my name." The words stunned her. She stared at him, certain she had misheard, but he went on. "A married woman's property carried more protection under the law, harder to seize, harder to bully away. If she had a husband, Briggs would lose his leverage." Luke was offering her his name, his standing, his strength beside hers. He wasn't pretending it was love, wasn't dressing it in sweet promises. He was offering partnership, protection, and a chance to keep what was hers. Clara left quickly, shaken. The idea was reckless, dangerous even. To bind herself to a man she had only just met felt like stepping into the unknown, and yet there had been no deceit in his eyes, only honesty and a steady kind of strength. That night she lay awake in the farmhouse, listening to the wind rattle the shutters, and thought of his offer. She thought of her father's grave and the promise she had made to hold on to the land. She thought of Briggs's cruel smirk, of the exhaustion that pulled at her bones, of the unbearable weight of carrying everything alone. And she thought of Luke, who had spoken not with pity but with certainty, as though he truly meant to stand beside her if she let him. For days Clara wrestled with the choice. Pride urged her to refuse, to fight alone until the end. Fear warned her against trusting a stranger, but reality reminded her she was out of time. Every morning she rose to work. Every evening she sat by the table with her hands folded tight, and the decision grew heavier until she could not deny it anymore. One evening, as the sun set the sky ablaze with gold and rose, Clara walked into town with her heart hammering in her chest. She found Luke near the edge of the settlement, tending his horse. He looked up as she approached, his expression calm but searching. Clara swallowed hard, forcing the words out. "If your offer still stands, I'll accept." For a moment he studied her, his eyes holding hers with quiet strength. Then he nodded once. "Then you won't stand alone anymore." And with that, 2 lives, one worn from endless wandering, the other from standing alone, took their first step together. It was not romance yet, nor love at first sight, but it was courage and it was hope. And for Clara, that was more than she had dared dream in a very long time.